In this video, we are going to be talking about a real estate agent that used predatory pressure sales tactics, of course, to enrich themselves and abuse their own client. Hey there, and welcome back to Bald Prairie Real Estate. My name is Matthew Pfeifer, real estate agent in Regina, Saskatchewan. That's my trusted assistant, Matilda. This is my weekly news recap where I give you a couple of news articles and my thoughts and opinions on them. But of course, let's start this off with another one of my terrible bad dad jokes. Why didn't the lifeguard save the hippie? Because he was just too far out, man. If you have a terrible joke I can use in the future, put it in the comments below. Realtor who took advantage of vulnerable client loses license for predatory behavior. This has to be the most scathing report I have ever personally read from a regulator about a real estate agent's action. This agent pursued a personal relationship with who ultimately became their client and then pressured them into selling their house. But it goes even further. They didn't just convince them to sell their house, they basically convinced them to swap houses with another client of theirs. And of course, they would facilitate the transaction and take that sweet commission money while they're at it. The seller expressed that they didn't really want to sell their house, but the agent said it was a smart financial move to sell their house. If you have a real estate agent that's pressuring you into either selling or buying a house, it's probably time to get a new real estate agent. Instead, a good real estate agent is providing you with information, knowledge, and experience so you can make a better decision for yourself. If you're moving to Regina, I would be happy to help you. But if you're somewhere else in Canada, don't worry, I can help you out with that as well because I've got a great network of agents across the entire country. If you look in the description of this video, you can link to my calendar or you can book me in for a call. This agent's actions resulted in $40,000 worth of commissions. Sounds like a really smart financial decision for them. It was noted that the agent did little to no marketing of the property and charged higher than typical commission rates on the sale, instead focused on selling it directly to that second individual. The number of things that are wrong in this story is starting to get absurd. The report also noted that the agent was deceptive and uncooperative with their investigation. Geez, I wonder why that is. This behavior was described by the regulator as predatory and they applied the maximum fine that they possibly could. The agent lost their license, they were fined $10,000, and they had to pay $67,000 in investigation costs. Once again, the Bank of Canada has cut interest rates. There is basically no surprises here. The Bank of Canada once again cuts interest rates 25 basis points. The majority of you answered that correctly in my poll. And of course, 𝗳𝗲𝗄𝗃 talked a lot in his speech about the threat of tariffs. At the time of recording, nothing has happened. By the time you watch this, that may be a different story. The Bank of Canada also revised down their GDP forecast for Canada in 2025 from about 2.1% down to 1.8%. In my 2025 Canadian real estate market predictions video, I said the Bank of Canada would cut interest rates 1% through 2025, and that of course they would cut at this first meeting. So I guess I'm 1 for 1 so far this year. If you haven't checked that video out, I'll put that in the description below and one of those pop-up cards. You should pause this video and watch that real quickly. When the Bank of Canada cuts interest rates, that doesn't mean fixed rates are coming down. It means that variable rates will drop. And we have now seen them come really close to parity with fixed rates. Historically, variable rates have been lower than fixed rates, but over the last year and a half or so, fixed rates have actually been the cheaper option. Let's take a look at this week's best mortgage interest rates. For the first time in what seems like months now, we actually saw some movement, and this time down for mortgage interest rates this week. Starting off with insurable mortgages, the best 3-year I could find was 4.24 through Radius. That's a drop. And the best 5-year is also through Radius at 4.19, dropping from last week. Looking at the best 5-year variable rates, the best static variable is 4.6% through Manulife. That is a drop from last week. And the best adjustable, 4.25 through B2B, and that's a drop as well. And here's what we got for the best uninsurable mortgage rates. 3-year fixed, 4.64 through B2B, that's a drop. The best 5-year is also through B2B, 4.64, and a drop from last week. Looking at the best 5-year variable rates, Scotiabank has a static variable at 4.65%, that's a drop from last week. And the best adjustable is through B2B Bank at 4.65% and a drop from last week. Looking at the big 5 banks' best 5-year fixed insurable mortgage, another boring week with absolutely no changes at all. Looking at the 5-year Canada bond rate, That started the week at about 3% and has dropped down to 2.8% at the time of recording. The bond market is what determines what happens with 5-year fixed rates. So if we continue to see downward pressure on the bond market, or at least if it stays at about 2.8%, there's a good chance we'll see the 5-year fix come down next week when we do this report. CMLS introduces 40-year mortgages in Canada. No, there hasn't been some massive change from the government of Canada this week when it comes to amortizations. This is a private mortgage, so it's not a bank or lender that's regulated by 𝗬𝗏𝗡. It also means that there's no stress test for this mortgage. We've already seen the government extend more amortizations from 25 to 30 years. Could 40 years be coming next? Back in 2008, there was 40-year amortizations offered by all the banks until the government clamped down on that. Those longer amortizations means lower monthly payments, and qualification for that mortgage is easier for home buyers, but it also means in the long run, you pay significantly more. When you go from a 25-year amortization to a 40-year amortization, the total cost to buy that house goes up by about 30%. BC condo owner loses their renovation legal battle. This was a condo owner that applied to make some fairly significant renovations and updates to their condo unit that they had purchased. And at first, it appears that at least the original scope of these renovations was approved by the condo board. But the condo board claimed that the renovations went well beyond the scope that was originally approved, while the owner says the condo board changed their mind. When this eventually got to a tribunal, the condo board claimed that the work was beyond the scope that had been originally approved. The renovations were done by family members and not qualified tradesmen, and that the work was done without any permits from the city. The city actually came in and put a stop work order on this project because renovations were being done to common property like the ductwork, and forced the condo board to reverse the changes the owner had made, which the condo board had to do at their own expense. Ultimately, the tribunal dismissed the owner's complaints against their condo board and forced them to pay $48,000 in fines and legal expenses. This is something you have to be aware of when you buy a condo. You may not be able to do renovations to that. Whereas if you own a house, for the most part, you can make pretty much any renovations or changes you wish to make. Please just make sure you're following code and getting proper permits for the work you're doing. This is Matilda's question of the week, where she's scouring the comments section for your questions. So if you have a question, put it in the comments below and we might feature it in next week's video.
Why does time of year matter when you're selling your house?
Oh, I love this question. I get it a lot. When is the best time to sell my home? And the answer is very much, well, it depends. Traditional wisdom says, put it up for sale in the busy spring market. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You typically have more buyers out looking to purchase homes in the spring. And if you get more buyers through more showings, you might get more offers and ultimately a higher price. But most sellers are also putting their houses up for sale in the spring as well, meaning your home has more competition that those buyers are also looking at. And on the flip side, if you have your house up for sale in December, January, any buyers that are coming out when it's minus 30 and there's 3 feet of snow probably very serious and motivated buyers. Ultimately though, the chances of getting your house sold if it's not actually up for sale are, well, basically zero. And you never know when a buyer who's looking for your particular house is out snooping around.